behaviors. And what we discovered is that behaviors drive culture. So if you have your values right, those create behavior, and behavior drives your culture. However, we discovered that there were two values that were literally life-changing and phenomenal.
Welcome to another Wellthy conversation that counts. And today we've got Alon Joseph, who's been in the HR, employee well-being, psychological safety arena for, oh, good grief, going on, what is it, 15, 16, 17 years. So he comes with a wealth of knowledge as we start to talk to HR professionals of the good, the bad, and the ugly around employees. And as I've been saying for so long, Alon, employee well-being programs are broken. That's my perspective. Yep. I'd love to hear yours. But first, please, tell us a little bit about it. Who is it, Alon Joseph?
So, that's a good question. I don't know if we have enough time for that. I'm still trying to work that out myself, by the way.
I got it.
But I'll tell you what, my journey from a very young age has always been the human mind, happiness, self-development. That's always been my biggest area. I've been an executive coach. I worked with people one-on-one, and one of my close friends decided in about 2008, when he was looking at his staff, how do we work with people? And we discovered that people are spending most of their time at work. That's where we spend most of our lives. And are people happy in the environments? How is work helping people to become happier and healthier? And it's really interesting because, as you correctly said, a lot of businesses are broken because of that. And that's what we discovered in our journey. We discovered that we looked at companies that we spent 3 to 5 years researching and playing around with different models. And we noticed that all companies had value charters, but some companies had business values and some companies had human values. And the difference between it was huge. Because those companies that had business values was just all about business. It's about bottom line. It's not about people. It's just purely about business. Is our business thriving? Good. And if not, well, who do we need to get rid of and replace to make the business thrive? Versus companies that were based on human values. And we noticed that those companies that had value charters based on human values wasn't just something up on the wall, but it was actually something that was lived from the CEO all the way down throughout the whole company. They were real values. And that piqued our interest. And that's where our journey really started with employee wellness. And the model we actually came up with was that a lot of people inside companies, when they look at HR, and I'm sure you might have discovered this, they look at HR as like, is HR on our side or the company side?
Oh, yes. Good point. Yes. HR for the people, or is it for the profit?
Exactly. And people looked at HR like, are you doing that because you really like me, or are you doing that because they told you to do that? And what we discovered by the company that we created called Live Your Part is that we became partners with HR, but they outsourced all of we worked with them to create these employee engagement programs, and people saw them as genuine because, wow, you're actually spending money on us. You actually care about us. And they saw the human element in that, and that human element was huge for them.
Perfect. I want to backtrack quickly on here. I love where you've gone with this, with the business values and the people values, because values is something I talk about all the time. And when there's a misalignment between a person's personal values and the company, that's where you create disengagement. The type of values you're talking about, are these actually written, or are they the unwritten culture which is driven from the CEO?
So I'll tell you what we discovered is when we started working with companies and we asked them, what are your values? What we actually identified was that there are 14 key values, but it's not often what people think.
Yep.
For example, I'll give you an example. When I sat with one CEO, I said, what value is important to you? He said, loyalty. I said, that's interesting because loyalty is a result of a behavior. It's a result of a value. So what does loyalty mean to you? And he struggled, and then eventually he said, you know what it actually means? It means honesty. He said, when someone is honest, it means that. I said, oh, honesty is a value.
Right.
So what we actually did is we broke down their values into actual human behaviors. And what we discovered is that behaviors drive culture. So if you have your values right, those create behavior, and behavior drives your culture. However, we discovered that there were two values that were literally life-changing and phenomenal. And it was so interesting to us. I'll share this with you.
Go for it, please.
When we ask people, what do you think the most important value that a company can have on their value charter is? The most important value. People are like, and people come up with different things. You know what we discovered there were two, but the most important value that we discovered that no one had ever spoken about was the value of you. Because in life, if you want something, who has to do it? You do. No one can do it for you.
Wow.
Right? So it doesn't help blaming your coworkers or blaming the boss or blaming the environment. If you want something, you've got to make it happen. No one can do it for you. And when we started talking about the value of you and how unique you are and your skills and the value that you bring to the company and the value that you bring to yourself, people's whole mind started shifting from their thinking, wow, that's amazing. And no value charter, had we ever noticed, ever spoke about the value of you as an individual, of you as a person.
Powerful. What's the second?
Yeah.
What's the second?
The second value is one of my favorites, and that's actually, it's so interesting. The second value was gratitude. And this we actually came across just by chance, but we found that gratitude literally changed people's lives. And the reason for that is that we're surrounded by so much negativity. If you look how many billboards you see, the news that you hear, it's all negative. And then you expect it to come to work and be positive and go out there and make a difference. But you've been bombarded with negativity. So what we discovered is that by bringing the value of gratitude in and just starting the day by saying, what are you grateful for today at work and at home? And people started to look for the positivity, and we got teams to start their day with gratitude sessions. And the results that we had of that were, we never expected the results and how powerful it would be. It became such a big thing, and I speak so much about it, that when I walked into companies, people didn't know my name. They would just call me, oh, there's Mr. Gratitude.
Oh, beautiful label. Love it. Love it. So I want to pull this in now. Love the value concept. Talk about it all the time. The value of you, who the person is, what is important to them, gratitude. Tie this in now to the psychological safety aspect and the well-being aspect in the workplace.
So what we discovered was that most companies have value charters and mission statements. But if the employees feel that it's only geared towards the bottom line and not towards them, they will not give their best. They will not grow. And if they're not giving their best and they're not engaged in the work that they're doing, the company will not succeed. Versus companies that focused on wellness and the individual, and the people felt, wow, you're really investing in me. You want the best for me as an individual, created such a psychological shift for people in the workplace that what happened was that statistically they say out of every 10 people, you've got some people who are actively engaged, some people who are actively disengaged, but the majority of your workforce are just disengaged. And what we discovered was that through the value of you and the value of gratitude, people felt, wow, the company values me. They became more engaged with the work they were doing because they wanted to be successful for them. It wasn't about making the company successful. It was about them becoming successful in their own right. And that produced amazing results, firstly for themselves as individuals, and secondly for the company, because what we noticed was that people were taking less sick leave. Productivity was up. All the things that make companies run, people were happier to come to work. There was a happier culture at work. The whole work environment changed just by focusing on those values. The whole well-being of an individual changed because of that.
Okay. All right. Brilliant strategies. Love the answers. I embody them fully. So, what the hell is wrong? Why is suicide up, burnout up, disengagement up, management level disengagement up horrendously? Look at the workplace results from Gallup's reports. Look at the statistics from Discovery, where they announce and they say there's a 63% increase in suicide rates of those of managers above the age of 50, specifically. So you've got this, you've known this for decades. So why aren't companies embodying this? What is broken?
That's such an interesting question. I've often thought about this. I've often thought about it. And I don't think it's all broken, but I think what's happened is that after COVID, I think there's been a big shift as well, in that companies are saying, are we being productive? The world's changed economically. Things have become much, much harder for people. Lifestyles have changed. It's really difficult for people. And I'm not sure that companies acknowledge how difficult it really is for people. We run all these programs, but are they really investing in the individual? You touched on that management statistic. It's about 5 years ago, I discovered something, and it was, I wouldn't say it was a light bulb moment, but it was really something that stood out for me in our work. I'm always very innovative in what we're doing. And about 5 years ago, I started a management training program. But it was about, what I discovered is that what happens, a person's brilliant at what they do. Like, you're great at sales. So what does your company do? They make you the head of sales.
Yeah.
But that's not your skill set. And you're actually not good at managing people, but you feel, wow, now I'm a manager. But they never train their people how to be good managers. They never train their people about the soft side of management, how to have hard conversations, how to talk to people, the work that you have to do, how to transition from being an employee to a manager is a process. They get a lot more pressure put on them, but no support. So what's happened is that through this process, there's now more pressure on people to achieve better results, because the economy has changed everything. People don't have those skills. They're taking more strain. They don't know how to deal with the people around them. It just cascades. Right. And where companies are not looking at the employees as human beings and saying, hold on a sec, what are we doing for their well-being? Are we actually looking at their well-being? Are we maybe pushing them too hard? Are we understanding that these are people and they're going through their own difficulties? And I think that's where a lot of it has gone wrong, is that culture of companies, unfortunately, from what we've seen, has just changed. And where you've got leaders who understand the value of people, those companies have thrived.
Right.
But I think by and large, a lot of companies have slipped back into that mindset of their companies is to make money. You're here to work for me so that we can make more money. And it's about that bottom line and not about the people. And even corporates, I just think everyone, just in my humble opinion, I think that's where people have gone really wrong with it.
And you're seeing that over the past 5 years since the pandemic, and yes, I said pandemic, over the last 5 years, that this has actually gotten worse. In other words, that this chaotic environment and the ever dramatically fast changing world that we live in business, that money, we've got to make the money. We have to do the shareholders, because the economy around the world are pretty much in turmoil, is that it's the focus financially. And so whereas beforehand there was maybe a lean towards looking at the psychological safety of the people, but now the money that was being spent on the well-being programs is actually gone aside in the replace of profit, versus the fact that the whole COVID chaos shifted everything in business, where it should have been the focus on the people, because suddenly the people were in turmoil, which result in the business being turmoil. That there's been a reverse. Actually, it feels like that what you're saying is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's gone backwards in the last 5 years, not progressed.
I think you've touched on it beautifully. During COVID, it was so interesting. During COVID, where did companies said, right, this is survival mode. What was the first thing that they cut all their funding to? Was all their wellness programs.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that went out the window, saying like, this is survival mode. We have to make profit so that we can live. Wellness goes out the window.
But what was the most important thing that was needed during COVID?
Exactly. And
Wellness.
that was the right. And that was exactly the point. I read the most brilliant book called Recultureneering. And it was
Ooh.
so interesting how cultures changed during COVID, because now you had online teams. You now had virtual teams, which have still remained like that. And the question is, how do you build a culture with a remote and a virtual team? How do you do that? And instead of companies now going back and saying, hold on a sec, how do we work with wellness? Realizing that their people are their greatest asset. And it wasn't everyone. There were some companies, it was really, really interesting when I did some research on this, of companies that survived the pandemic versus those that didn't. What was really interesting is when I spoke to a lot of the people, is that companies that survived actually did spend time with their people. They would have just social get-togethers. It wasn't always just about work. It was, guys, we're going to have Friday drinks. And they tried to build this culture where they looked at people and said, we understand how it is. They did daily check-ins from a psychological perspective and a wellness perspective. There were companies that set an example of how to do it. And what they discovered was that after COVID, they had a much more productive workforce. It was phenomenal for them. But I think by and large, when you have a culture that's driven by capitalism, then your human element falls out the way. And I think that's exactly the point, is that now that the world's sort of gone back to it, people are saying economies are hard. There's this happening. It's all about the bottom line. Yes, wellness is a nice to have if we can afford it. And if not, then we have to do without it, and people must just sort themselves out.
Even though the statistics are around, the books have been written for decades about the importance of your most important asset is your people. Yet companies are still focusing on the bottom line, which is the result of the work being done. It isn't the work being done. So here's the key question, Alon. If you had that magic wand and you could wave it and change anything within the corporate dynamics to increase on the happiness of people, the people happiness in the business, and you had that magic wand, what would you like to put into place?
Yeah, it's a good question. Me.
No. I love it. Yes. Me, my business. I've got the answer. I'm the one. Right. There you go. That's it. End of conversation. Alon's the answer.
You know what I would really love to put into place? That the thing that I've noticed that has changed people's lives more than anything else is just gratitude. I think if companies could focus more on, like I give an example. I once got a CEO to handwrite notes to 300 employees. And it was just, thank you so much for the work that you do. I really appreciate it. And he just left it on their desk for them. I said, like, let's try this. And you can't believe the feedback from people, how touched they were just by something little, just by little notes, just by people feeling appreciated and acknowledged. People are working hard. People are really giving their effort. They want to succeed. But the thing that happens the least is the acknowledgement and the gratitude for the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think if people would just take that step back and acknowledge their teams and acknowledge the people around them, I believe the whole workplace would be totally different. You walk around the shops, how many people are like walking around smiling and happy? Generally only the ones who are on either a lot of medication, right, or taking some good stuff. But there's just like people aren't living like that. Yeah. So for me, if I had one magic wand, the thing that I've seen create the biggest change in people's lives is just the value of gratitude.
I love it. It's a beautiful way to finish our conversation. The simplest things that cost the least
exactly
have the highest impact and return.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Alon,
I'll share with you one little story if I can.
Go for it, please. Love your stories. Go.
So I got made many years ago. I got made a little card that says "thank you" on it, and on the back just has some blank lines. And I would write thank you notes. So I fly quite a lot, and when I fly, what I started buying little chocolates and little sweets, and I would write thank you, and I'd give it to the air hostesses and say, please, give one to each person, and give, to the captain as well. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking your time out. And it was so interesting. At first, I would do it when I was leaving the plane. And then I decided, I wonder what would happen.
Where are you going?
I wonder what would happen if I did this when I walked onto the plane. So what I did is I would make sure I was the last person on. And as I walked on, I would give them like a bag and say, this is just to say thank you for all of you, please give to the captains as well. And that was it. It was really just to say thank you for them and, hopefully getting us there safely. Hopefully. And the results, there was like, maybe I should do this at the beginning because maybe then they'll fly better. And it was so interesting, the results that happened. The first couple of times, I would have like a stewardess come to say, please can you stay behind afterwards? The captain would like to thank you. And I had a couple of times when the plane landed, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Uganda. And we'd just like to thank the man for giving us the sweets and the chocolates. It really made our day. And I was like, wow. I wasn't expecting those results.
Beautiful.
But it was really so beautiful just to acknowledge people. So it's now something I do as a standard thing, but it really just showed me the power of it. And I had once, there was a passenger behind me who saw me hand these things out. He said, what are you doing? I said, but this is what I do. I teach a lot about gratitude. So he took my number, I gave him some cards, and he phoned me later that afternoon. He said, you've changed my whole life. He says, I spent the day giving people these cards and just saying thank you. He says, I can't believe people's reactions to it. Something so simple is something so powerful. So it just reminded me of that, of that little story.
The human connection and the need to feel seen, heard, and valued.
Very much so.
Beautiful. That's a stunning one. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Alon Joseph. Your insights and wisdom come right from gratitude to this corporate culture and the difference between having your business values and people values. Let's go back to the basics and be grateful for each other. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much and look forward
Thank you very much.